Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1382B, and today's date is September 19th, 2017, and the title of the episode is Behind the Scenes, the U.S., China, and North Korea are talking. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, we understand that through the Freedom of Information Act, people can order public records and take a look at them, and they can do this through the government. But what's very interesting is that the U.S. government is now suing citizens requesting public records all over the country. Now, this violates the Freedom of Information Act, and it looks like throughout the U.S. government, a growing number of organizations, school districts, municipalities, state agencies, they filed lawsuits against citizens for making the Freedom of Information Act requests to obtain public records. Now, the governmental bodies argue that they are doing so to let the court decide a matter that isn't quite clear legally, such as when the documents may be shielded by an exemption or privacy law. And that's causing a problem, of course, and becoming a new way for governments to hide information from the everyday people. And we can see at this point is that maybe they don't want certain records out there because there's been some dealings that they don't want anyone to see, and this is why they redact a lot. And of course they say, well, this is because of security reasons, but we know really what they're doing. They're hiding a lot of information. Now, WikiLeaks, they published spy files from Russia. This is a new cache of documents which it claims details surveillance apparatus used by the Russian state to spy on internet and mobile users. And they dumped the documents out there. And we have to understand, it's just not the United States that spies on the people. Each one of these countries, United States, England, Germany, France, Spain, Russia, China, they all do the same thing. They have their spy apparatus all set up. They look at the internet, they look at mobile users, they don't like encryption because it's very difficult to break through. And you can see right now that, yes, WikiLeaks is showing it's not just the US, it's all of these countries. When government is in control and they are doing whatever they do, which is really not much for the people, but for themselves, they like to spy on the people. They like to spy on individuals to see what is going on here. Now, of course, here in the United States, this is a violation of our rights. In other countries, it might not be, which it should be, but they don't have the same constitution as we do. Now, Trump is out there, and he was speaking in front of the UN, and he came out with a statement that, the United States might not have a choice, but they might have to the United States might have to destroy North Korea. And of course, the corporate media is going wild over this. And of course, he's calling Kim Jong-un Rocket Man, and he's saying Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and his regime. And what I see from this is he's playing right into the cabal, making them think that, yes, we're going to be going after North Korea. And from the past, he doesn't really operate in this way. Many people think that he's compromised, the cabal hasn't. Maybe they do, but I still think he's playing the game. Maybe he's not doing it as well as he should be, but you have to remember they're still attacking him. They're still investigating him. And the corporate media, and this is coming out of Japan, they're saying that North Korea is building a nuclear-powered submarine that they hope to have operational by 2020. Now, what they're doing right now, and this is part of the cabal, they're building the idea that North Korea is going to become this incredible nuclear power, and they're very close in getting there. And we need to stop them before they do. Now, when we look at their technology and we look what they've done so far, they really don't have the ability to create a nuclear-powered submarine. Right now, it would be a massive leap forward from the current Navy, which has around 50 to 60 diesel-electric submarines, to go from that to nuclear-powered submarines. First of all, they can't even get their missiles to fly in the air. So right now, they're just making this stuff up to make you believe that this is going to happen. We see South Korea, their news agency, and remember, the cabal is intertwined with all these news agencies. They have control over the news agencies. They're being fed different stories. And this is why we get these stories from all these different corporate medias. And they're out there telling us that there's another aircraft carrier that will be heading towards South Korea to join in with the naval drills. And we can see that they're pushing this idea that we're getting ready for some type of an invasion. But what's very interesting is that Trump and Xi Jinping, they have agreed to maximize pressure on North Korea. Now, Trump and Xi Jinping, they've been talking quite a bit behind the scenes. And according to Thomas Pickering, the United States is involved in informal talks with representatives of North Korea. And there's been no diplomatic breakthrough as of yet, but they are talking behind the scenes. Now, the corporate media really doesn't want you to know about this. They just want you to know that North Korea is coming to get us, that they're going to be firing missiles, they're going to be hitting Guam, they're going to be hitting Chicago, Alaska, they're going to be blowing up these nuclear missiles over the United States, creating a EMP wave pulse that's going to knock out all electric. And they're saying that this is going to happen in South Korea. But right now, the United States is involved in informal talks with representatives of North Korea. And we can see that Thomas Pickering, the former U.S. ambassador to Russia and U.S. Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, is saying this. And basically, they're talking with China, with Russia, the United States behind the scenes, and they're looking to calm the situation down. And we can see right now that these talks need to continue on, because if they don't, the cabal is going to try to push their event. So in the background, behind the scenes right now, we have talks going on. We see China and Russia, they kicked off the second stage of their joint naval operations in the Sea of Japan. And we can see right now the Chinese fleet, which consists of missile destroyers, frigates, submarines, helicopters, and many other pieces of equipment. Well, they are staging this huge naval drill right there. And we can see that Russia, China, they push their drills. The United States, the NATO push their drills. And basically, they're just showing force on either side, saying, listen, we know what you have. We know what's going on. And, we're here. So take a look. And we know for a fact that Russia, well, they've knocked out many of the U.S. ships. They've knocked out their electronics. We have the USS Donald Cook in the Black Sea. It's very odd that the ships that were hit by these two ships that were hit by these other vessels, they weren't able to steer away because they have all this equipment on their radar. They understand what's going on. I mean, think about cars today where they know that something's approaching from the side or the back or the front. They have all these sensors. You're trying to tell me that these ships with all these sensors, they can't maneuver without the crew? Maybe something else happened. Maybe the electronics were taken down, and maybe the ships couldn't maneuver during this period of time, and maybe this is why this happened. But we can see that there are problems occurring right now in the Navy, especially with Russia jamming the Aegis system. And this is a major problem. Now, out in Syria, we can see things are really falling apart for the cabal. Things are not going well. Erdogan is out there, and he is saying that the U.S., and don't get me wrong, Turkey was involved with this also, but it looks like now Turkey is moving closer to Russia, so now they can point the finger at the U.S. saying that, yes, they've been supporting and arming the terrorists. And the only reason Erdogan is out there saying that is because Washington has canceled the $1.2 million Turkey weapons deal. And Turkey is moving closer and closer to Russia, and they're also purchasing military assets from Russia at this point. But we can see that he was very angry that Washington did this, and he came out and said, yes, the U.S. is supplying weapons and working with the terrorists in Syria. And we can see that all this stuff is starting to come out in the open right now. And we're going to hear a lot of truth bombs where a lot of these nations, well, as things start to fall apart, they're going to come out and say, yeah, this is what was happening. And they're going to point the finger of who was in charge of all of this. This is what we see happening right now. we're at the beginning stages of all these countries trying to figure out what direction they should go. Because think about what's happening right now. The Middle East is falling apart. The cabal, they don't have control of the Middle East. They thought they were going to go into Syria, then they thought they were going into Iran, and they were going to completely, control the Middle East, keep the petrodollar system running. But now, with Syria lost, they can't go into Iran. So what do they have left? Well, they have Iraq, which is moving closer to Iran and Russia. They have Libya. We see General Haftar is trying to take control of the country, moving closer to Russia. We have Lebanon, once again, is removing the Islamic State from the country. Afghanistan is working with Russia and China right now, even though the United States is sending something like 3,000 more troops into Afghanistan. This might be a cleanup operation at this point, because basically in Afghanistan, all they've been doing there is protecting the poppy fields and continually keeping this war going with the terrorists. They never wanted this to end. And we could see that at this point, the government in Afghanistan is working with Russia, looking to purchase weapons, looking to have Russia come in and defeat the terrorists. So these troops going in there right now, well, most likely they're fighting the Islamic State, but also they might be there to clean up what has been going on in this country. We saw this in Syria, where U.S. troops flew in, they evacuated the Islamic State, they destroyed all the paperwork and the bases and everything that was there because it was a mop-up operation. And we're starting to see that this is happening in many different countries. So when everyone is focused on, all these troops are going in there to keep this war going, I think it's the opposite. I think it's a mop-up operation because people thought all these troops were going into Syria to keep the war going. Yes, we do still have factions inside of Syria. The CIA is still involved trying to push their agenda. This is why you hear the Nusra Front. This is why you hear the Islamic State, that they're going to fight to the death. But it's a lost cause. Russia, Syria, they've been pushing and pushing and pushing, and there's nowhere left for these paid mercenaries to go. And they're going to be scrambling outside of the country. And this is why we saw the troops in there cleaning up after them. I think the same thing is happening in Afghanistan right now. And what we're seeing is the cabal right now, well, the whole entire thing is starting to fall apart. And there is nothing left for them to do except try to start a war with North Korea. And this is their main goal, because they need to do this before the economy falls apart and they are blamed. The truth comes out and everything is exposed. Because if they don't get this war started, if they can't get anything started, we're going to see truth bombs like you've never seen before, and it's going to shock the country. We're already starting to see them. Of course, the corporate media is not going to broadcast them because they're still controlled by the cabal, by the CIA. So they're not going to be out there telling you all this stuff. Just like the Pentagon was supplying weapons to the paid mercenaries in Iraq and Syria. A lot of this is being kept quiet. What's happening in North Korea is being kept quiet. They don't want people to know what's really going on. They just want you to hear that we're going to be going into North Korea, that North Korea is going to fire missiles and destroy Guam, to scare you into saying, yes, let's have a military operation, let's go into North Korea. That's what they want to happen. This is what they've been pushing for. And this is why you keep hearing these stories. This is why you keep hearing all of this, because they want the American people to push Congress into saying, you know something, we better get them before they get us. This is how the cabal works. This is how the corporate media works. And this is what we see happening right now. But I think what's happening in the background is going to basically stop all of this, and the cabal is going to be finished. But once again, we will have to wait and see. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.